Throughout history, the concept of justice has been shaped by the punishments given to criminals. Today, imprisonment is the most common method of punishing criminals, but in ancient Rome, things were vastly different. If someone committed parricide, the murder of their own father, there was an inescapable fate awaiting them: Poena Cullei. This was not just an execution method, it was one of the most brutal forms of punishment, designed to uphold the moral values of Roman society. The criminal was sewn alive into a sack and thrown into the water, left to perish. But this was no ordinary drowning. The condemned person was not alone inside the sack. Alongside them were 4 different animals, sealing their horrific fate. But why did the Romans prefer such a terrifying method? How was Poena Cullei carried out? And were there real historical cases of people sentenced to this punishment? Let's dive into one of ancient Rome's most savage penalties. In ancient Rome, family was sacred. Even for the state, the strength and unity of the family were considered more important than anything else. For this reason, parricide was one of the most heinous crimes against both society and the Roman order itself. Because of this, someone who committed such a crime was not deemed worthy of an ordinary execution. According to Roman law, a parricide had to be punished with the most terrifying and disgraceful death imaginable. Here's how the punishment was carried out. First, the criminal was forced to confess their crime in public. Then, the court formally sentenced them to Poena Cullei. Before execution, the condemned was publicly flogged in a public space. This was meant to humiliate and disgrace them before society. But the true horror began afterward. The criminal was then placed inside a large leather sack, along with 4 live animals, a snake, symbolizing betrayal. Killing one's own father was seen as the ultimate act of treachery. A dog, representing disloyalty. A son who did not remain loyal to the father who raised him was considered a moral disgrace. A rooster, symbolizing conflict and chaos. A monkey. Romans viewed monkeys as representations of corruption and the most degenerate aspects of human nature. Once all were inside, the sack was sewn shut and thrown into a river, the sea, or sometimes even into a well. Inside the sack, the animals would panic in fear, creating utter chaos. The snakes bit the prisoner, causing them to suffer before drowning. The dog and monkey, in their confined space, turned aggressive. The rooster flapped wildly, adding to the terror. This punishment was designed not only to cause physical pain, but also psychological torture. The condemned had to fight for survival inside the sack, only to drown in agony. Romans believed that this ensured justice in both this life and the afterlife. Poena Cullei remained in Roman law for centuries, and one of the most well-documented cases was that of Publius Septimius, an aristocrat accused of killing his own father. The Roman Senate found him guilty beyond any doubt. According to Roman law, there was no chance of mercy for such a crime. The Senate's ruling was clear. He was to be executed by Poena Cullei. Septimius was prepared for execution along the Tiber River. Inside his sack, he was joined by a snake, a dog, a rooster, and a monkey. According to witnesses, his screams could still be heard even after the sack had been thrown into the river. Some claimed that the sack continued moving underwater for some time, as the animals and Septimius struggled inside. This terrifying scene spread among the people and was talked about for years. Poena Cullei first appeared in Roman law in the 1st century BCE and continued until the fall of the empire. However, over time, it underwent changes. After Rome's collapse, the Byzantine Empire adopted similar punishments. During the Middle Ages, some European kingdoms continued executing criminals by sewing them into sacks and throwing them into rivers. In the Ottoman Empire, a similar method was used for palace crimes. It is known that certain women in the harem were executed by being strangled and thrown into the sea. While this punishment no longer exists today, it remains one of history's most horrific execution methods. History has seen many brutal punishments, but Poena Cullei stands out as one of the most terrifying, combining both physical and psychological suffering. But what do you think? Did this punishment truly serve justice? If you had lived in that era, how would it feel to witness such an execution? Would you like me to continue covering history's most horrifying punishments? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.